Thank you very much, IT. Good evening again, and I apologise for the IT technical difficulties that we've had. So as some people haven't heard the start of the meeting, I'm going to go back and begin the meeting so that everybody can hear the first part. So it's good evening and welcome to Rugby Borough Council's Planning Committee, today the 9th of December 2020. My name is Councillor Catherine Lawrence and I'm the committee chairman. This meeting is being web streamed to the public and is being attended by members of the committee through Microsoft Teams. With me, I have the support of the following officers: Richard Holt, Head of Planning and Enforcement, Sarah Chapman, my legal advisor, Claire Wallachek and Veronica Bekova from Democratic Services, and the planning officers Karen McCulloch, Chris Davis, Erica Buchanan, Francis Keenan, Thomas Leach, Chris Bates and Paul Varnish. Before we begin working through the agenda, I'll go through some rules on procedure. As set out in the introduction, this meeting is being web streamed to the public and is being monitored by IT services. If at any point there are any streaming issues, then I will be informed and the meeting will be adjourned until such time that the technological issues can be resolved. If during the course of the meeting any member of the committee is having connection issues, then there will be a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the connection issues can be resolved. If following the adjournment the connection issues cannot be resolved, then providing the meeting remains quorate, it will continue. It will be deemed that the member with connection issues has left the meeting and will no longer be able to participate. If it is my connection that goes, then the Vice Chair will assume the chair. For officers and speakers, please switch off your microphones and cameras and I will call you to speak at the appropriate times. For committee members, your microphones and cameras should be switched off unless you are speaking. If you wish to ask a question during debate, please use the raise hand function and wait for me to ask you to speak. The voting during virtual meetings will use the raise hand function. Are there any questions before we move into the formal agenda? I will now ask our Democratic Services Officer to confirm the attendees at this meeting. Your name will be called out and can you please confirm your attendance? Veronica.
Thank you, Chair. Moving through the names alphabetically for members of the committee, followed by substitutes for this evening. Councillor Mrs. Brown.
Present.
Councillor Kieran Brown.
Present.
Councillor Batlin.
Present.
Councillor Cranham.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Gilias.
Present.
Councillor Ms. Lawrence.
Present.
Councillor Picker.
Present.
Councillor Roodhouse.
Present.
Councillor Sandison.
Present.
Councillor Srivastava.
Present.
And substitutes for this evening, Councillor Keeling.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the formal agenda. So agenda item 1 are the minutes, and it's to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of November 2020. Can you please confirm the minutes?
Just waiting for one more to vote, Chair. That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, everybody. You can lower your hands. Agenda item 2 is to receive apologies for absence from the meeting.
We have, sorry, Chair. We have one apology for this evening from Councillor Eccleston. Councillor Keeling is substituting for Councillor Eccleston.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 3 are declarations of interest. So to receive, first of all, declarations of non-pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. And I'll declare an interest in R20/0689, the Lox Hill Morton, by virtue of being a ward councillor. Councillor Kieran Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Application number R19/0434, ward councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Picker.
Application R20/0689, ward councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Gilias. Councillor Gillius, you're muted.
Apologies. Application R20/0438, as I'm currently working at the nearby Harborough Fields farmhouse.
Thank you. Councillor Srivastava.
Application R19/0143, Borough. I'm a Borough Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Garcia. Councillor Garcia.
Sorry. These are nature that I'm the ward councillor for R20/0335, R20/0438 and R19/0143.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other ward councillors who've got to declare interest in applications, please, under A? No? Okay. Then B, pecuniary interests as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. There are none. And C, notice under Section 106 Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Okay, there are none. In that case, we will now move on to applications for consideration. And as we have speakers tonight, I'm going to run through the way in which we deal with our speakers, in which each item will be dealt with is the planning officer will speak first and present the application. The representatives for the objectors, the applicants and then the ward councillor will each be invited to speak. And after each of those speakers, committee members will be allowed to ask them if they have any points of clarification. Any ward member or councillor who speaks on an application as part of the public speaking process shall leave the meeting once all speakers have completed their presentations relating to it. Members of the committee then debate the application, asking relevant questions, and a formal recommendation will be made and voted on. All remaining speakers on that application will then be asked to leave the meeting and can view the rest of the meeting via the live stream on the council's website. The rules for public speaking. Speakers, you will have 3 minutes to make your presentation. I will time you and I will warn you when you have 30 seconds left and then when your time has expired. Your presentation should then be brought to a halt and no extra time will be allowed. Speakers, you should direct your presentations to amplifying the planning matters that you have previously put to us for the benefit of the planning committee. And you should restrict your comments to material planning considerations only. Any non-planning issues will be disregarded. Speakers should not introduce any additional information that has not previously been brought to the planning authority's attention. In other words, introduce late items that have not been suitably considered by officers and properly addressed in the officer's report to the planning committee for members' deliberation. No visual aids or handouts may be used and no questions to officers or members will be allowed. No members of the public are allowed to take part in the debate once their presentation has been given. So we move on to the first application for consideration tonight, which is R20/0335, which is land to the west of Heath Lane, Brinklow, Rugby, and it is Chris Davis to present.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. I'll just share my screen. Bear with me a moment. Can I just confirm that members can see the display, please?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
So members are being asked tonight to vote on this application on land just off Heath Lane in Brinklow. It's for full planning permission for erection of stable block. You can see here it's a relatively large parcel of land and the proposed stable block is to be located just here in the southeast corner. You can see here the plans for the actual stable building. It's of a fairly typical design, timber framework and cladding. Inside it's set out to form a total of 4 loose boxes with a fodder store inside. And it's proposed to be constructed of stained timber weatherboard cladding with the roofing being either black undulan sheeting or green felt tiles. Moving on to views from the site, this is the view of the access from Heath Lane if you were standing looking straight in towards the site. If you are approaching from the north, which would be from the Brinklow village side, and you're turning right into the site, the access is just here. And if you're approaching heading towards Brinklow village centre, you'll be approaching from the south and the entrance is just here. Moving within the site, this is a view from just past the entrance gate, looking straight through the site towards a property that's known as the stables. This property does not form part of the application site and is a separate unit. You can also see here the existing posts and structures. These are the only above ground structures within the site of note. Moving to look towards where the stables would be, these would be located to the left of the entrance. You can see where the stable would be located approximately here. The parking area would be just before it here. And the access road would be here leading down towards the gate that you saw in the previous photos. The issue of erecting buildings in the greenbelt can be deemed to be appropriate if they're for outdoor recreation purposes, provided that they preserve the openness of the greenbelt and they do not conflict with the purposes of including land within it. The site currently has no other buildings of comparable size to the proposal, so the erection of the stables would therefore impact on openness, even though the size of the building was reduced through amended plans. The extent of hard surfacing required to facilitate the proposed access track and the parking and turning area would have a significant visual impact on what is currently a grassed paddock with no discernible signs of development. As appearance and character is also a key aspect for determining the appropriateness of greenbelt development, this detrimental visual impact is also considered to be harmful to the greenbelt. Therefore, the proposals conflict with policy GP2 of the local plan and sections 2 and 13 of the NPPF. In addition to the impact on the greenbelt, the proposed works would also detrimentally impact on the character and appearance of the site as a green pocket on a section of Heath Lane where development is reduced and properties are separated by fields and open land. Therefore, the proposals also conflict with policies GP1 and SDC1 of the local plan and sections 2 and 12 of the NPPF in relation to character and appearance. Moving to other planning matters, the proposals would have no detrimental impact on either the amenities of local residents, highway safety, or environmental factors such as air quality or contamination. Warwickshire County Council Ecology Unit have raised no objections and welcomed the inclusion of native species planting in the amended scheme. On balance, the development would constitute inappropriate development within the greenbelt. It would also detract from the character and appearance of the locality. However, the amenities of neighbouring residents would not be detrimentally affected, and neither would highway safety or environmental factors. The proposals conflict with local and national policies pertaining to both the greenbelt and visual impact. Therefore, it is recommended that the proposal be refused due to conflict with policies GP1, GP2 and SDC1 of the local plan and sections 2, 12 and 13 of the NPPF. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. A very concise and accurate report and some very clear photographs to help us to visualise the site. Right committee, you have had time to consider the written report and you've now heard the officer's presentation, so we will move into debate. Councillor Garcia, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm having technical issues tonight. Oh, are there no speakers on this?
No.
Oh, right, sorry. Well, there's not much you can say, is there really, apart from the fact it's a very concise report, straight and to the point, and I'd like to move it as per the report.
Thank you. Councillor Gillies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm going to have to second that. Unfortunately, due to the policies it's conflicts with, it's something that we can't possibly support. So I'm going to second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Butlin, you have your hand up, and then not sure who's next.
Right. Just a quick one. Kind of Tony Gillius has got in ahead of me. I was going to second it, but yeah, I confer with the previous two for a refusal.
Thank you. And are there any other hands up? No. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded for refusal as per the officer's report. All those voting for refusal, please raise your hands. Veronica?
That's 11 for refusal, Chair.
Okay. Anybody, hands down then. Anybody against refusal once we've got all the hands down? Right, anybody against refusing? Councillor Butlin, your hand is still up, or are you? Right. And is anybody abstaining? So we've lost somebody's vote against that one. But it's pretty clear 11 were against, therefore that application is refused. Okay, thank you very much, Chris, for that one. Okay, we're going to move on to the second application, which is R17/1089, which is land to the north of Coventry Road, Long Lawford. Karen McCulloch is going to present this, and we have speakers on this one. And I would like to thank those members of the area who have responded to this application and who have contacted committee members and their ward councillors to raise their various concerns, all of which we have listened to. Karen, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check you can see my screen, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This application relates to land to the north of Coventry Road, Long Lawford. It's a full application for 149 dwellings with associated landscaping, public open space and infrastructure, and also includes an amended junction between the A428 Coventry Road and Back Lane. Can I just check the slides changed?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, as I mentioned, this was a full application for 149 dwellings, which range from 1-bedroom to 4-bedroom houses, with 23 dwellings, which is 15.4% provided as affordable housing. The proposals for a mix of bungalows, 2-storey and 2.5-storey properties, which have rooms in the roof space. And on the layout plan, the bungalows are the ones that are shown yellow, and the 2.5-storey properties are the ones that are shown in the blue. As you can see, open space is proposed in the centre of the site, and it is also proposed along the existing footpaths and hedgerows, and there's a balancing area opposite Avon Lodge. The 26 dwellings at the west of the site will be accessed through the development to the north. The majority of the dwellings will be accessed from a junction with Back Lane, and as you can see on the plan here, Back Lane is to be realigned and right turn lanes are going to be provided on Coventry Road in both directions. And the existing alignment of Back Lane will then form a cul-de-sac for the existing properties. Here's the photographs of the site. From the top is looking from close to the Back Lane and Coventry Road junction all the way along the site. And the bottom photo is the western part of the site looking towards properties on the green. Since publication of the agenda, 4 additional objections have been received on behalf or from one of the neighbouring properties, and I'm aware members have also received correspondence. These raise similar points to the objections on the agenda, and also they consider the ecological reports are out of date. They consider the development would be quicker and less expensive with an alternative access. They raise concerns regarding access to their property during construction and consider that the development will be contrary to their human rights and cause planning blight. Councillor Byrne has also confirmed that he agrees with the comments made by Councillors Bragg and Poole, which are summarised on the agenda. The key issues to assess in relation to the application are the principle of the development, the impact on heritage assets, the housing mix, affordable housing, design and layout including residential amenity, transport, highways and parking, landscaping and biodiversity. In terms of the principle, Long Lawford is a main rural settlement where development will be permitted within the village boundary and on allocated sites. The site is allocated for the development of around 150 dwellings by the local plan, and the principle of the development is acceptable in accordance with Policy DS3. In terms of heritage assets, Avon Lodge is located to the south of the site and is a Grade 2 listed building. This is a designated heritage asset, and the impact on this building and its setting must be considered. The proposals will not lead to any physical works to the listed building. However, the development will be visible from the building and will be seen in association with it. This will result in an impact on the setting. Whether this causes harm to the setting and the level of harm must be considered in the assessment of the proposal. The setting of a listed building can include physical and visual factors, but also includes social, historical and economic factors. The site to the front of Avon Lodge is currently open agricultural land, and the existing agricultural use of the site connects to the historic use of Avon Lodge as a farmhouse. The proposed development will be set back opposite Avon Lodge, behind the hedge, balancing area, access and so on as on this plan, which will retain some openness. The physical setting of Avon Lodge is already affected by Coventry Road, which includes signage and lighting, by boundary hedgerows and by other residential properties. The historical links to the agricultural land have also been eroded by other developments, including a conversion of a stable immediately adjacent to the listed building. It's considered that the proposals will have minor less than substantial harm to the setting of Avon Lodge. Notwithstanding this, the harm to heritage assets must be given considerable importance and weight and must be weighed against the benefits of the proposal. The objector has commented that the development could involve piled foundations and this would lead to substantial harm to Avon Lodge, and they consider that the application should therefore be refused. However, foundation design is not a planning matter, although the applicants have been made aware of these concerns. Archaeological work across the site identified archaeological features which constitute non-designated heritage assets, and the county archaeologist has raised no objection, subject to a condition which requires further works in specific parts of the site. In relation to housing mix, Policy H1 sets out that the housing mix should reflect the strategic housing market assessment, although an alternative mix can be considered where market factors show this would better meet local demand. The proposals include a slight under-provision of one-bedroom houses, an under-provision of 2 beds and an over-provision of 3 and 4-bedroom homes. Supporting information was submitted with the application, detailing that the most common household types within the catchment area are modern parents, which are defined as dual income households with children who generally require 3 or 4-bedroom properties. There was also evidence of the high demand for 3 or 4-bedroom properties in the area. The applicants also commented that the requirement to provide specialised foundations to smaller properties could impact on the viability of the development, and that the increased number of smaller properties would increase the density of the development. On this basis, it's considered that the proposed housing mix is considered acceptable. In relation to affordable housing, the target within Policy HS2 for affordable housing provision is 30%. This policy then goes on to state that if this level of affordable housing is not to be provided, evidence must be submitted to show that the development would not be financially viable at the target level. The proposal includes 23 affordable homes, which is 15.4% as affordable rent. The applicant has submitted viability information, which has been independently assessed on behalf of the council. The National Planning Policy Guidance sets out how land values, costs and development values should be considered in relation to viability, and that sets out that a return of 15 to 20% is reasonable. The assessment submitted by the applicant bases the land value on the greenfield edge of settlement sites within the area and actually reflects the values used in the council's own local plan viability assessment. The costs are based on the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors Build Costs Information Service, with the costs reduced slightly for costs within Rugby. and the development value was based on nearby developments. This assessment shows a return of 15.3%. The independent assessor advised the council that the costs and values used in the viability assessment are reasonable. They went on to advise that 30% affordable housing would render the development unviable, and that the proposed 15.4% affordable housing is on the limits of viability. It's therefore considered that the viability information has demonstrated that an increase in affordable housing would not be viable. The level of provision therefore complies with policy H2 and the NPPF. The proposed affordable housing comprises 8 one-beds and 15 two-beds, which are all for affordable rent. And these property sizes and tenures are supported by housing based on the demands within the area. The affordable housing proposals therefore comply with policy H2. The design includes a mix of bungalows, 2 and 2.5 storey properties, and here are some of the examples of the house types. These are traditional designs which reflect nearby developments. The properties close to Coventry Road are set back from the boundary with front or main side elevations facing this road. Hipped roofs, 2.5 storey properties, dual aspect properties, changes in materials and features such as chimneys are used to add interest to the street scenes, and the design is considered acceptable. In relation to neighbouring properties, the properties on the green are most affected by the proposals, and as you can see from these photographs, these are at a lower level than the site. So this one here on the top photograph is to the green, which is on the corner of Coventry Road and the green. Then this is number 4, which again, these are both bungalows at a lower level. Then as you move up away from Coventry Road, this is the rear garden of 12 the Green, which is a very narrow garden. And as you can see, the land rises here, and then there's a very thick hedge on the boundary with the site there. Due to the thickness of the boundary hedge and some places along this boundary, the actual boundary line is unclear, and residents have raised concerns that they feel the boundary line shown on the plans is incorrect. However, this has been raised with the applicant, who believes that the boundary lines are correct and that the relevant notices have been served. The large hedge on the boundary is also to be retained. To reduce the impact on these properties, a landscape buffer is proposed on the boundary and bungalows are proposed in this area. A condition is suggested removing the permitted development rights from these properties to prevent extensions in the future. And subject to this condition, it's considered that suitable separation can be achieved from these and other neighbouring properties, and the impact on residential amenity is considered acceptable. In terms of highways, the proposals include the realignment of Back Lane, and the main access to the site would be from this realigned road. The western part of the site will be accessed through the existing development to the north. The realignment will result in the removal of an ash tree, as shown on the photograph, and part of the existing hedgerow. The Highway Authority objected to the original plans and requested amended plans and additional information. Amended plans and information, including road safety audits and traffic modelling, were provided, and the Highway Authority raised no objections to the proposals, subject to conditions in a Section 106 agreement. Objections received from a neighbour have raised concerns regarding the realignment of Back Lane in terms of the access to Lelliford House, the need for the alteration and the loss of the tree. The revised access plan includes a waiting area within the right turn lane, which you can see on the plan below, which is for vehicles turning in or out of Lelliford House. The submitted traffic modelling showed that the proposed alterations would reduce queuing, and the Highway Authority advised that this will address historic concerns about the existing junction. The modelling did not show delays for vehicles entering or exiting Lelliford House. The objector suggested an alternative access could be provided further west. The Highway Authority advised that this could be acceptable in principle, however it has not been subject to a safety audit and so on, and could also impact on other trees and hedgerows. And if you look on the photograph with the tree, there is another tree further along the road than the one that's going to be affected. In addition, the Highway Authority advised that they would seek further improvements to the existing Back Lane junction. As the Highway Authority, as mentioned, do not object to these proposed access works, and they also raise no objection to the access through the development to the north. The proposals are therefore considered acceptable in relation to highway safety. There are existing public footpaths which run through the site, and these are to be retained. The Highway Authority requested a contribution to extend the existing cycleway which runs along Coventry Road to connect to the site to the east of Back Lane. There's an existing half-hourly bus service which will serve the development, and the Highway Authority requested the provision of a pair of bus stops on Coventry Road to increase the accessibility of this service. The site is therefore accessible by sustainable transport methods. Car and cycle parking is proposed in accordance with the standards, with an over-provision of car parking, and a condition is proposed to prevent the conversion of garages to living accommodation. In relation to landscaping and biodiversity, the proposals include amenity areas alongside the existing hedgerows and footpaths, and a central open space area which will include a play area and balancing areas, and a balancing area to Avon Lodge, close to Avon Lodge, sorry. There will also be planting to the development plots. The proposals involve the loss of the ash tree on Coventry Road as mentioned, and areas of hedgerow and a category C tree on Back Lane to provide the access and realign Back Lane. In addition, parts of the hedgerows which cross the site and a category C ash tree will be removed to provide the road within the site. The neighbour comments that the Coventry Road ash tree should be classified as a category A tree. However, these comments were put to the council's tree officer, who agrees with the applicant's assessment that the tree is a category B tree. Notwithstanding this, the tree officer and county ecologists would prefer for the tree to be retained. However, the removal is required for the proposed access works. 2 semi-mature hazel trees are proposed as mitigation to either side of the new access. However, the removal of the tree carries some weight against the proposals. Elsewhere on the site, the proposals were amended to move development plots away from retained trees, and the proposed landscaping includes native species and semi-improved grasslands. No objection was received from the county ecologist or tree and landscape officer, and the proposed landscaping is considered acceptable. The application included ecological reports and a biodiversity impact assessment, and further information regarding bats was requested. This was provided, an additional bat survey of the ash tree that's to be removed was also carried out. The proposals will lead to an overall loss of 2.68 biodiversity units, and the county ecologist has requested a contribution towards biodiversity offsetting within the borough. Conditions are proposed relating to a landscape and ecology management plan and a construction and environmental management plan. And subject to these conditions in section 106, the impact on protected species and biodiversity is considered acceptable. The proposals include the over-provision of amenity open space, but the under-provision of facilities for children and young people, natural and semi-natural open space, and a very slight under-provision of parks and gardens. However, the total area of open space to be provided on site exceeds the overall requirements. A contribution is required for children and young people's provision within the local area. There's to be a play area provided on the site, and this was amended following comments from colleagues in parks. However, further alterations are required, and this can be controlled by a condition. It's therefore considered the open space provision is acceptable. As detailed on the agenda, the development is considered acceptable in relation to air quality mitigation, noise and vibration, drainage, water usage and broadband infrastructure. As detailed on the agenda, a section 106 agreement will be required relating to affordable housing, play and open space, biodiversity offsetting, education, libraries, bus stop maintenance, cycleway provision and travel packs, a travel plan, Warwickshire Police and an NHS contribution, and these requirements comply with policies, the MPPF and the community infrastructure regulations. In relation to the planning balance, the proposals will provide 149 homes, which includes 23 affordable homes, on an allocated site with a suitable design and layout. They will provide a mix of housing and a level of affordable housing which is supported by the viability assessment. They will provide suitable on-site open space, play area and landscaping using native species, and will provide a junction arrangement that will reduce queuing. They will not have an adverse impact on highway safety and will allow access to sustainable transport links throughout the wider site and surrounding area. And these factors carry weight in favour of the proposals, with the provision of housing carrying substantial weight. These are the public benefits of the proposals, which must be weighed in relation to the heritage asset. However, there are factors which carry weight against the proposals, which are the less than substantial harm to the setting of the Grade 2 listed building and the loss of the ash tree on Coventry Road. It's therefore considered that the benefits of the proposals outweigh the factors against it. The proposals comply with the development plan and no material considerations have been identified to indicate that development should not be approved. In accordance with the NPPF, paragraph 11C states that development proposals that accord with an up-to-date development plan should be approved without delay. As it's considered that the development complies with the local plan and the NPPF, approval is recommended subject to conditions and Section 106 legal agreement, with a minor change to the plan schedule to change the reference to the most up-to-date tree survey. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Karen. Now, I understand that we have speakers on this application. We have Mr. Philip Taylor, who is objecting. We have Kirsty Clifton from Define Planning and Design, who is the agent, speaking on behalf of the applicant. And I understand we've got Councillor Heather Timms as the ward councillor. Veronica, can you just confirm that for me, please?
Yes, Chair. Just bear with me a second. So for the application R17-1089, it's Mr. Philip Taylor and Kirsty Clifton. Councillor Timms is speaking on the application R20-0438.
Can we just clarify that with Councillor Timms, please?
I'm sorry. Did you say for? I'm speaking against?
I thought you were speaking again as the ward councillor on this application, Councillor Timms.
On R20-0438? Against?
That's the one she's got you down for, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's right, that's the correct one. Right, my mistake. Okay, right, in that case then we will move to Mr. Philip Taylor. Are you there, Mr. Philip Taylor? You can unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, if I'll just get my stopwatch ready. So your 3 minutes begins now.
This proposal will cause significant harm to the setting of a Grade 2 listed building, Avon Lodge, and the net public benefits do not outweigh this harm, and there are clear reasons in law as to why this development should be refused. The main harm, according to the planning inspector, is the urbanisation of the setting, which has always remained rural and open. He said the harm of the development to the setting could be considered significant, and the number of houses has increased since he wrote that. Additionally, the developer would use piling techniques which threaten the structure of Avon Lodge, and in combination, it's likely that the effect of the harm on Avon Lodge and its setting is to be substantial, and consent should therefore be refused. The report downplays the harm to the rural character of the setting caused by the urbanisation, saying it is minor. Given the rural character is the setting, this is simply not a view that any reasonable person could hold. The report goes on to argue the minor development to the west of Avon Lodge and the existence of the Coventry Road, which has existed for hundreds of years, is evidence of less loss of significance. This amounts to saying that because there's been some sensitive minor development, there is no need to preserve the rural setting of Avon Lodge. Nowhere in the report is a special regard to preservation stated, and nowhere is there a clear and convincing justification for the harms that the proposal would cause. The balancing exercise in paragraph 19 exaggerates benefits and ignores other harms. For instance, calling SUDS a benefit is erroneous, since currently the site drains surface water in a far more sustainable way than a SUDS would. It ignores the harms of increased traffic and road layout, particularly to the occupants of Lelliford House, which common sense tells you will increase the accident risk. This junction already shows a high level of collisions and it is speculation that the measures suggested will actually address those. In respect of Avon Lodge, the NPPF says the benefits can only outweigh the harms if the harms are necessary. Given that there's around 5.5 acres of open space on the development, these harms are not necessary, and there could be a reallocation of the open space. In conclusion, the report does not capture the harm to the heritage significant lost by this development and simply invents or exaggerates benefits. Where harms outweigh the benefits as they do here by law, the committee must refuse consent.
Thank you very much. Very well timed. Congratulations. Not easy to get your speeches within 3 minutes. Committee, do you have any questions for Mr. Taylor on what he has put forward to you? Councillor Garcia?
Yeah, just a clarification. You said that the number of the housing had changed. What has it changed from and to?
Well, I understand that houses have been added since the local plan and since the planning inspector gave those views. So those views about rural setting and harm are the planning inspectors. They're not mine.
Right, so you were just saying it was outdated because there'd been extra houses added into it.
Exactly.
Planning, but you don't know what the original figure was.
No, I don't have the numbers to hand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garcia. Perhaps we'll get the planning officer to come back with that once we've heard the speakers.
Thank you for that.
Okay, right, and our second speaker is Kirsty Clifton. Is Kirsty there?
Hello, yes, thanks very much.
Okay, are you ready?
I am, thank you.
In that case, your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you, good evening. This application is based on the principles for housing development for the site that have been established through a comprehensive process of consultation. That has been held through pre-application discussions with the Highway Authority and the allocation of the site through the local plan examination process, as well as through detailed post-submission negotiations on the application itself over the past 2 years. The layout of development has evolved to ensure it sensitively addresses neighbouring properties in terms of its scale, proximity, housing types and practical implications. The construction process itself will be managed through the Council's approval of a construction and environmental management plan to ensure that it doesn't cause any unacceptable impacts. The development also retains existing natural features wherever possible and provides various types of open space, as well as retaining pedestrian routes through the site to secure a high quality, attractive environment for all residents that is integrated with existing development. The application addresses the direct impact of development, proposing specific works and financial contributions relating to highways, education, biodiversity, libraries, health and policing. As a consequence, it will provide 23 affordable homes for rent, being 15.4% of the total, that responds to the specific house types needed for the borough in light of the advice of the Council's housing officer. This overall package of measures is set out in the submitted viability assessment, and the Council's advisors have agreed that this results in a financial outcome that is only marginally above the lowest acceptable return under the National Planning Practice Guidance. The key objective stemming from the pre-application advice from the County Council has been to ensure that appropriate design of the access in conjunction with development. This has been properly considered in consultation with the Highway Authority, both pre and post planning application submission, and no objections have been raised by their officers subject to conditions and contributions. It's common ground with the County Council that the revised junction layout at Back Lane will also address existing safety concerns associated with the current junction and ensures safe access to the allocated site and the neighbouring properties in a comprehensive fashion. Throughout the lengthy application process, we have sought to respond reasonably to all matters raised through additional assessment and refinement of the scheme. Based on the information before you, we believe the development fully accords with the development plan. Thank you. And in accordance with the advice on decision making at paragraph 11C of the NPPF, should be approved without delay, subject to the recommended conditions and legal agreement proposed by your officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Committee, do you have any questions for Kirsty? Councillor Garcia.
Yes, it was about the affordable housing actually, because obviously as a council we don't really support anything coming in as low. So I just wondered what assurances you had for us to, because I don't want to find out at a later date you've come back with a viability study and that you can't do the 15% and it's now 4% or something.
We have comprehensively reviewed the viability, and the 23 houses at 15.4% is what is agreed and will be delivered on the site.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gilliers.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the plan in front of me of the junction, the slightly rearranged junction, and I know from bitter experience this is a very, very busy junction with the Coventry Road and Bilton Lane, and I know you've repositioned it slightly on your plan, but it's still going to be busy and awkward. Have you not considered a completely different position for that access onto that site, so it's not overburdening the back lane?
As part of the pre-application consultation with the Highway Authority, there were various scenarios that were discussed, and the preferred option is what this application is based on. We have gone through the modelling that Warwickshire County Council require. That was done in the early stages of the project and has been reviewed in relation to all of the changes that have been made as time has passed. And the minor revisions, the most recent one being that the road safety audit that was carried out on behalf of the County Council was reviewed directly with their advisors, Vectos, and monitored for queuing exactly in that location, and was found to be acceptable by all parties.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no more queries, yeah, I can see a hand has been raised. Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up from what Councillor Garcia was raising regarding the affordable housing, I was wondering whether you could perhaps shed any light for the committee on how you've come up with the viability assessment of 15.4%, given that this is a field on the edge of an existing urban settlement. I'm struggling to see how that can result in a loss of half our target of affordable housing.
Basically, the size of the Section 106 costs is sizable. I mean, ultimately, they are probably the largest cost against the project. There are also obviously infrastructure costs that are associated with it, and in terms of the varying sort of. We've gone through and reviewed again all of the feedback from consultees and stakeholders, I mean, even though that we have actually reduced the number of units on the site down to 149, there is some work that is required in relation to site levels and the works associated with that. So ultimately, the infrastructure requirements in terms of the road, the Section 106 requirements and some of the site level changes are matters that we have included within the viability that effectively affect the number of affordable units that we can provide.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any further questions? No? In that case, committee, then I'll open it up to debate. Who would like to go first? Councillor Garcia.
Thank you very much. Actually, it was before I just go into debate, and I know we've been told not to do this tonight, but I just have one bit of clarification for the officer. I noticed in the report that the other bugbear of mine, the parking and everything, that was over. So that was good. And I noticed that she conditioned the garages not to be made into dwellings. I wondered if that could be extended to offices as well, because I think that it's important on these developments that the garages are used for garages.
Okay, can I have some clarification, please, on whether that condition can be extended? Karen and possibly Sarah on that one. Karen.
Chair. I'm just finding the wording of the condition, which is that no garages shall be converted to living accommodation. So that would be bedroom, home office, games room, whatever you wanted to incorporate it into your house. You would need consent to do so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Picker.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Karen, for the report. It is comprehensive and it does set out a lot of the issues relating to this development. I think the most obvious one is that the principle of development on this site under our local plan is acceptable. However, that doesn't necessarily follow that any development is acceptable, and I do think there are some issues with this site. I've already touched on my concerns over the affordable housing levels, and I know that a viability assessment has been done, but I'm not 100% convinced by the answer I was given relating to the 106 arrangements and the particular comments in the report, paragraphs 17.8 and 17.9 relating to the NHS requests. I'm not convinced by that at all, and if that's been taken into the viability assessment, I do think there's trouble there. The other area that I have very significant concerns about is the layout of the road junction. We know that that road junction is an issue. It's already been inferred by other councillors and it was referenced by Mr. Taylor. But the thing that I find most alarming about it is the decision to relocate the back lane junction to directly opposite the only residential property on that entire section of road. I can't understand how, even if that's acceptable from a highways perspective on traffic modelling, I can't see that that's acceptable on a residential amenity basis from the existing residents on that property, especially when there is, if you look at the plans in detail, there is a section of road that comes down to almost form a hammerhead directly opposite the Coventry Road. So I really don't see that the best solution to the issues is to realign back lane in the way that's proposed. So I think on that basis, I am minded to move refusal on this application.
Okay, Councillor Picker, if you're moving refusal, you will need to state which bits of the local plan and the MPPF.
On the highways ground and on policy H4 relating to affordable housing.
Okay. Sarah, can I clarify with Sarah from legal, please?
Yeah, that Councillor Picker is entitled to do so.
Thank you very much.
I would also just add, I think, Councillor Picker, you mentioned residential amenity as well as one of your concerns in relation to the highway, so I'd include that as well.
Yes, yeah, the layout of the road and the impact it will have on the residents at Lellaford House.
Okay, right, I've got Councillor Barbara Brown wanting to speak and then Councillor Cranham, and I've also got the officer wishing to speak. Karen, do you wish to respond to Councillor Picker?
Yes, please, if that's okay, Chair. I just wanted to clarify the comments in relation to the NHS contribution. As members may be aware, this application has been through 4 different sets of amended plans and the numbers of houses went from 153 to 143 and then back up to 149. The comments were received on behalf of the NHS on each of those occasions, and each time these resulted in a different contribution request per dwelling, starting at £543 approximately per dwelling. It then tripled to 1,797, and then the latest figure equates to around £1,318 per dwelling. The viability assessment was carried out based on the initial request from the NHS. Following the increased contribution requests, the NHS were contacted on several occasions. I got a response from them agreeing that they understood my concern, but they were going to look into it and get back to me. I then had another response to say there did seem to be an issue and their client was trying to resolve it and they would get back to me. This was around this time last year. Since then, they've been contacted several times and have not managed to give me an explanation for the increased contribution request. So therefore, I don't consider we've got any evidence that it's fairly related in scale and kind to the development. So I don't have any grounds to require the increased level of contribution. There would also be the knock-on effect that the increased contribution would further impact on the viability and therefore the affordable housing provision. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, just to clarify that, Karen, so you've used the lower figure that was initially provided by the NHS and not the higher figure?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, right. I've got Councillor Barbara Brown followed by Councillor David Cranham.
Thank you, Chair. Mine, again, it's more an observation, really. Again, it's about affordable housing. And once again, we're not meeting the target. In fact, we're 50% down on this one in terms of what we would have hoped to have seen. It's very disappointing. Either our target for affordable housing is unrealistic, which I think is completely wrong. It's not an unrealistic target, or something is happening in terms of these calculations on sales and so on. For those that are out of the affordable bracket, it just seems to be out of sync. And again, we're seeing this failure to meet what I think is a fairly reasonable target in the circumstances. I don't think this is the right place to address the issue, actually, but I just want to flag up that is there and it does need to be addressed in terms of future planning applications. I'm struggling to support this application because of that difficulty.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can I just remind committee that the portfolio holder, Councillor Simpson-Vince, has actually written to the Minister regarding our concerns about affordable housing and the developers' inability to meet these targets.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cranham.
Thank you, Chair. I am struggling a little bit with this. I've got several concerns. Firstly, the impact on the heritage assets, the low level of affordable housing, but significantly the road layout. I use this junction at least twice a month, which is probably more times than the highway engineers have visited the place. It is an accident waiting to happen. It is the most nonsensical traffic arrangements I have seen in 14 years on the planning committee. I'm really struggling to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roodhouse.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I know the junction quite well, and I've perhaps seen many accidents happen at that junction. And I too, having looked at the junction in greater detail, and I'm still not fully convinced by the safety audits that were done. Sort of struggling with the design of the junction, and I think there probably is a better way of doing that junction. And like other councillors, I think we're all fed up with the affordable housing at the levels that we're trying to achieve in the borough.
Thank you very much. Right, at the moment we've had it moved for refusal, but Councillor Picker will need a seconder on that. Councillor Gillius.
Yes, Chair. Yeah, my concerns are definitely with the road junction. Like Councillor Roodhouse, I've witnessed numerous accidents there, one of which a vehicle turned over on its roof. So it is a really, really bad junction. It wants a real rethink and bringing the traffic into those houses from a completely different access, so it's not overburdening that back lane or the junction around Bilton Lane. And I'll second Councillor Picker.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gillius. Councillor Sanderson. You're still muted, Councillor.
Sorry, Chair. Members seem to have some serious concerns regarding the junction and increasing the traffic flow at that junction. In terms of the affordability, I hear what you say about the portfolio holder, but has she had a response from the Minister is the question.
Well, the response, I can't answer that one, I'm afraid, at the moment.
Yes. Well, we need to tell him to get a wriggle on.
Okay, is that it, Councillor Sanderson?
It is.
Okay, Richard Holt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points. With regard to the portfolio hold letter to the Secretary of State, I understood that it's more to do with not just our issues to do with affordable housing, but it's all to do with, right across the country. And I believe it may be something that we will look at further in the emerging planning white paper, but I accept that that's not going to happen very soon. The second point is really just to stress that obviously the Highway Authority has looked at a range of alternative accesses along the Coventry Road, and the correspondence I've seen recently is that the developer obviously wants the application to be considered based on what is before members tonight, and that Warwickshire County Council, as the highway experts, have determined that this is a safe access to be considered suitable for the development to go ahead. So it was just basically to make that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. But notwithstanding that, you've got a lot of local knowledge regarding that junction, saying that in fact that it is considered by local councillors to be a dangerous junction. I have to say I'm really disappointed in you, Councillor Sanderson, because I really thought you would have picked up on the ash tree. Bearing in mind that we seem to be losing a lot of ash trees, I think it's a real shame that we're going to be losing what is obviously a lovely specimen of an ash tree, and that would be my concern. Have we got, I've got hands up. Are they old hands or are they new points? Councillor Brown, your hand is still up. Councillor Cranham, Councillor Pickering, Councillor Sanderson. Are they new points or not?
Mine's a new one. No, mine. Chair.
Right, Councillor Cranham then. Councillor Cranham, you first.
Thank you, Chair. I am not opposed to the development there in principle. I believe with a little bit of goodwill from the applicant, that junction could be moved and the impact on the heritage asset could be minimised. And if that was the case, I would be supporting the application. But I know this junction very well, and I care not what the highways engineers say. What they've put there is an accident waiting to happen, and that's based on 50 years of using that junction.
Thank you, Councillor Cranham, and I have to remind everybody that we have to vote on the application before us, not on what might be changed in the future. So, Councillor Picker, you're next.
Yeah, it was just to come back on the highways point. I mean, I accept that it is possible for something to be technically safe on a traffic modelling perspective, and yet from a residential amenity perspective, as I've set out, but also as other councillors have alluded to, if that junction gets busier as more cars use that road, I can't see that the road will be safe. And as Councillor Lawrence has pointed out, and that I neglected to mention in my initial comments, it is also resulting in the loss of a Category B tree, which, having declared a climate emergency, again, I think there are better ways of doing this site. The development, in principle, some kind of development should go ahead, but I do believe that there are some serious technical reservations with this application, which is why I can't support it.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Chair, just on the ash tree, I did read the arboreal officer's report regarding this tree and its condition and its future lifespan, and the applicant had promised to replace it with 2 trees. I think you have to be realistic. When a tree is beginning to deteriorate, as the report indicates, is it realistic just to save it for the sake of?
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Shrivastava, I think we're coming to the end of the debate now. You're muted, Councillor.
Sorry for that. The traffic modelling, when it was done, I don't know whether the Warwickshire County Council contacted the local residents. Obviously, the councillor were not involved, and this traffic is a big issue.
Thank you. Right, committee, we've had it moved and seconded for refusal. The grounds for refusal being that it is contrary to policy H4, which is our affordable housing ratio. It's also being refused on grounds of highway concerns regarding the junction, and also being refused as respect of residential amenity. Karen, did you wish to say anything? Because we're actually going into a vote.
Yeah, can I just clarify that the policy for affordable housing is H2, not H4?
Thank you.
And I just wanted to check that what you're saying is that the junction would be detrimental to highway safety and impact on the residential amenity of Lilliford House. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Right, so moved and seconded. All those who are voting for refusal, can you raise your hands now, please? Do we have a count?
That's 11 for refusal.
Okay. Is there anybody against? Would you like to take hands down, committee, please? Right, is there anybody against refusal? And is there anybody abstaining? So we have one abstention, is that right?
I'm getting a little bit confused here, Chair, because there was 1 for against and then 2 for abstention.
Do you want me to take the vote again, please?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay, all hands down then, please, and we'll do the vote again. Right, all those who are voting for refusal on the grounds that we have stated, raise your hands now.
So that's 10 for.
That's 10. 10 for refusal, okay. Take your hands down, please. And anybody who is not in favour of refusal?
1, Chair.
And, okay, hand down. And are there any abstentions? 1 abstention.
1.
Okay, so that is 10 who voted for refusal. That application is refused. Can I thank, please, our officer and our speaker on that particular application? There's a lot of work gone into that and a very thorough debate before we reached a conclusion. Right, we're going to move on to the next application, which is R20/0438, and this concerns, if I can get it right, Harborough Fields Farm, Churchover Lane, Harborough Magna. Erica Buchanan is to present, and we have speakers on this one. Okay, over to you, Erica.
Okay, just going to do the screen share. God, where was it? Sorry. There we go. Right. Can you see that? Hello?
No, I've got a blank screen.
No.
I did this before.
Does Richard have the presentation if you can't bring it up?
I can try share. I'm just loading it up on my screen, unless if Erica can't manage to do it.
I've got it on my screen, but it's not sharing.
Chair, I can't see anything.
No, I don't think any of us can. Erica's having problems actually sharing her screen. It's showing on her screen, but not on ours.
Try again.
Perhaps we'd better go with Richard and you talk us through the slides from if Richard can share, please.
Okay, bear with me, chat.
Thank you. And Erica, if you can advise Richard when you need to move on to the next slide, please.
Yes, certainly. Right. Right. Yeah, this is the development for solar farm.
Wait a minute, Eric. We've now got a blank screen again.
Oh.
I don't know what you've done, but we were using Richard's screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, my presentation got cancelled, I think. Can you... I'll try and share again.
My screen is showing Erica's screen, which is blank. Right, okay.
Okay, should I have my screen back now?
Yes, I've got yours.
Yes. Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. That's right. This is the development for land at Harbourfield Farm. It's for a solar photovoltaic farm comprising solar arrays, substations, communications containers, battery storage and spare parts containers, interconnection facilities, CCTV, internal tracks, access and association development. On to the next screen. And this is the proposed layout of the solar farm. At the top of the screen, you can see Harbourfield Farm. The line into the middle is the old railway line, and the bottom of the left hand, the bottom of the solar farms is the gas compression station. Next screen, please. There's some plans showing the fencing to go around the site and an elevation section of one of the panels. The next plan, please. And here's some variations of the associated buildings. There's the battery storage building, the customers section and the spare parts building. The next one, please. These are photos of the site. This was taken from the track road leading up to Harbourfield's house. The photo on the left is showing across the field, one of the fields which will be used for the panels. Very in the different, the centre of the back of the picture is where the church spire is for the Holy Trinity Church in Churchover. The picture on the right shows again across the fields where no panels will be, again showing in the distance Churchover and Churchover. Next one. Thank you, Richard. This is taken from on the other side of the railway line. The first one on the left-hand picture is showing the view of the site towards the gas compressor station, and the picture on the right, the photo on the right, is showing one of the fields to be for the solar panels. And next one, please. Right. The key documents to determine the application is the policy set out in the local plan. They're listed in the committee report. Other documents to consider, which are national ones, are the national policy statements EN1 and EN3, the written minister statement on solar energy, protecting the local and global environment, and the United Nations Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change, and the Committee on Climate Change's report, Net Zero, the UK's contribution to stopping global warming, dated May 2019. Next one, sorry. Right, some of the concerns that have been raised. Obviously, part of the site is in the green belt. The plan on the left shows, on the right, sorry, shows the area that is edged in is the green belt area. And obviously solar panels are they're inappropriate development. As such, it reduces the openness to the green belt. However, the panels follow the form of the land and are at a low level, which does reduce its impact. In addition, solar farms are temporary and do not remove the green belt designation. As they're inappropriate development, very special circumstances is required to allow some developments. And in accordance with paragraph 91 of the NPPF, the solar farm would help towards the reduction in CO2 emissions and mitigating climate change. That's the next one, please. The heritage. Historic. Sorry, hang on. Churchover is the nearest village, which is a conservation area and contains numerous listed buildings, most notably the Grade 2 star Holy Trinity Church. The church spire is a prominent feature in the most distant views of the village. Historic England have, when they were consulted, have stated that the proposed solar farm results in less than substantial harm to the Holy Trinity Church in Churchover and the conservation area. From this plan, the plans were amended to take on board the comments made from Historic England. And on the plan before you see the orange area, which was part of the original scheme when it was first submitted, those panels have been removed from the scheme. The areas highlighted in green is where there are panels added to it, so they're more compact and therefore have less of an impact and less of the views for the church and Churchover. Historic England are still maintaining that it does cause less than substantial harm. As such, we have to look at the public benefits that outweigh the less than substantial harm, and the fact that it's the renewable energy generation which contributes towards the provision of energy from renewable sources, which mitigates towards climate change, is the public benefit that outweighs the harm. That's the next one, please. This is a photo, well, it's a view, sorry. This is a view from one of the lanes across the fields. In the distance, you see the church spire. In the foreground, you see the gas compressor station. The field behind it is one of the fields that's like to have the solar farm. But the fields around the church spire, which would be the long distance view, does remain as agricultural, and shows that the church spire and the church, the setting is less than substantial harm to it. So the next slide, please. Cumulative impact. One of the concerns raised was the fact that there are two other proposed approved solar farms in the area, and this one would have a much cumulative impact. When the red solar farm nearest to Churchover, which was the land west of A5, which was allowed on appeal, the inspector noted that you'd see the solar farm against the backdrop of the A5, and that it would not be seen from Churchover itself. Streetfields Farm, which is at the top of the picture, which was the one we approved last year, if members remember, that one is far enough away from Churchover that it actually does not have an impact on it at all. When with the proposed one, which is outlined in blue, which is the current application before you, none of those three solar farms would be seen in one visual impact from Churchover. Therefore, there is no cumulative impact. the next slide, please. The landscape framework to do with the proposal also includes some landscaping, and it's a framework, and as a result of this includes increased biodiversity, increased landscaping, increased hedging, and as such, to say this is the framework. Can we go to the next picture? Next slide, please. There's just some here. The landscaping framework identifies the mitigating measures for the biodiversity. There is a biodiversity gain. It increases the hedgerows, and there's habitat enhancement for protected species. Just want to point out that in paragraph 6.6 of the report, does actually should read condition 5 and not condition 4. In addition, with the landscape framework, there is hedge. Two of the proposed hedges are outside of the red line boundary. So therefore, it is proposed to actually amend condition 5 to read that the landscape and ecological management plan, which shall be submitted, and that we would add the words in and shall cover the site area, identify the site area and land within the blue line, just so that it's covers both the site plan and the outside the blue line. The next planning balance, the proposed farm in part is partially located in the greenbelt, and special circumstances are required. That results in less than substantial harm to the setting of the listed building. However, it is temporary for a period of 35 years. It provides renewable energy, which contributes to meeting local and national targets of energy from renewable sources, reduces carbon emissions and mitigates climate change. Therefore, the benefits outweigh the harm to the setting of the listed building and are considered very special circumstances for development in the greenbelt. Therefore, it's recommended for approval with the conditions set out in the committee committee report and the amended wording to condition 5. The application has been called as it's the greenbelt and is subject to referral to the Secretary of State.
Okay, thank you very much, Erica. Right. So we're going to move on to, somebody's got their microphone still on. Is that better? Right. We're going to move on to our speakers. We've got 3 speakers. We've got Dr. Christopher Down from Churchover Parish Council as an objector. We've got Mr. Owen Saywood, Climate ER agent, and Councillor Heather Timms as the ward councillor. So we're going to move first of all to Dr. Down. Are you there, Dr. Down?
Yes, I am, Chair. I hope that you can hear me.
We can indeed. Right, I have my stopwatch ready, so your 3 minutes start now.
Right, thank you, Chair, and also committee members. The reasons for our Parish Council objection remain as stated. You have those in the officer report. Their failure to protect the historic environment, impact upon the landscape generally, but in particular, they contravene the green infrastructure policy of the adopted local plan, NE2, and also contravene the green belt. I want to concentrate on those 2 last points, if I may. NE2, green infrastructure, which is actually green and blue because it includes rivers and watercourses as well. It is completely ignored in the officer report. I cannot understand why, but there's no reference to it whatever. The purpose of the policy is the protection, restoration and enhancement of existing and potential assets within the network shown on the policy map. And this application fails completely to protect those green infrastructure assets. The policy also says The assets include water corridors and disused railway lines, both of which occur here intimately. It is vital, I quote, that those elements of the network remain intact. This application fragments the green infrastructure policy and does not leave it intact. So I'm a complete loss as to why the officer report makes no mention of it at all. Turning to the green belt, renewable energy does not automatically override green belt protection, but nor does renewable energy necessarily constitute very special circumstances. The solar farm would provide exactly the same renewable energy benefit whether it was located inside the green belt or outside the green belt. If it was out, so that very special circumstances must include some extra benefit from placing it within the green belt as opposed to outside. The MPPF confirms that the harm to the green belt must be clearly outweighed by other considerations, and no such consideration has been demonstrated, nor do we believe exist. On the contrary, there is acknowledged harm. The report acknowledges the harm in principle to the green belt. Thank you. And that harm is cumulative with the existing solar farms in the valley. 60% of the applications in the green belt and the whole of it's in the green infrastructure designation, and we believe the application should be refused on clear planning policy grounds, and the applicant can appeal that if he so chooses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Committee, do you have any questions for Dr. Dan? No, I see no hands up. In that case, we'll move on to the applicant and Mr. Owen Saywood, Climate ER agent, speaking on behalf of the applicant. So, are you there?
Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you indeed. Okay.
Thank
right.
you.
Are you ready?
Yes.
In that case, your 3 minutes starts now.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of this application. My name is Owen Saywood. I'm a chartered town planner, landscape architect and chartered environmentalist, and I am Planning and Development Director with Climate Emergency Renewables. Last week, the UK government committed to cutting greenhouse gas emissions by more than 2/3, or 68%, of what they were in 1990 by 2030. To achieve this target, the UK needs a 50% increase over and above current commitments to tackle climate change. Swiftford Solar Farm represents an excellent opportunity to deliver on this national priority, as well as on Rugby Council's commitment to tackle the climate emergency. With a capacity of around 27 megawatts, that's enough clean, renewable electricity to power nearly 6,500 homes. That's all of the homes in the parishes of Churchover, Harborough Magna, and Monks Kirby, plus some further 13% of the remaining homes across the entire Rugby Borough. Crucially, the project will increase biodiversity on and around the site, improve landscape features, and increase knowledge of the local archaeology through on-site investigations. All existing trees and hedgerows will be retained and protected, and nearly 2,000 metres of new hedgerows planted with semi-mature trees at intervals. All wildlife on site will be protected, including badgers, reptiles, amphibians and birds, as well as new habitats created for those species and others, leading to at least 10% biodiversity gain on site and beyond. As your officer has demonstrated in the report before you, it is clear that the special circumstances required to allow part of this development to be sited within the green belt exist in this instance. I recognise that historic England considered there to be limited, less than substantial harm to the setting of the church in Churchover. However, as your officer has outlined and national planning policy supports, the considerable renewable energy and biodiversity benefits associated with the solar farm clearly outweigh the limited harm in this instance. In any case, should members resolve to approve the application here this evening, it will be the Secretary of State who makes the final decision on this proposal with regard to its impact. In conclusion, I am delighted that through our collaborative approach with statutory consultees, there are no formal objections to the application. This follows changes made to the layout and size. Thank you, Chair. This follows changes made to the layout and size of the development in response to feedback from consultees and the local community, reducing the footprint by 20%. We've committed to make available a community benefit fund and will work with local communities to ensure the money is spent on renewable energy, energy efficiency and environmental initiatives. I'm very grateful for the time you've taken to listen to me this evening. In the interest of climate change, energy security, biodiversity gain and the UK's green recovery, I urge sectors
That's it, time up, I'm afraid.
recommendation and vote to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Does any member of the committee have any questions for Owen Saywood? Councillor Gillius.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, of course, this time of year we're only going to get maybe 8 or maybe 9 hours worth of generation time with the panels. I'm assuming that the power that they generate is going to be stored in batteries. Are they for use overnight? Is that the case?
Well, the planning application as it exists allows for some battery storage to be incorporated within the layout. So yes, that's absolutely a possibility to store the solar electricity generated during the day and release it not just at night, but when there are other requirements within the local grid.
Okay. The other question is, in the report, it does state that the grass that's going to be planted, because currently that land has been grown root and cereal crops. So the grass that's going to be planted and it will be grazed by sheep. Have you any idea how many sheep it will need to keep that grass trimmed down to size? And the other question tagged onto that is there a building available to house those sheep in bad weather and at lambing time?
So we have an agreement with the current landowner to grant a grazing license across the entire solar farm. The sheep that would graze the solar farm would also have access to the rest of the land holding and the buildings across the land holding. So I think the agricultural buildings associated with the sheep farming would not necessarily be incorporated within the footprint of the solar farm itself.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just the biodiversity gain, would that include reseeding the land underneath the panels, so that some of it's wildflower meadow at the moment. Obviously, we wouldn't want to lose the wildflowers from the locality because of lots of the local insects and bees and things like that within the environment. So would you be reseeding as well as providing the impact with the solar panels?
That's right. So the area within the solar farm itself, within the fenced area of the solar farm, would be seeded to grazing for the sheep grazing. But there's a very wide margin. You'll appreciate that there needs to be a certain standoff between boundary features and the solar panels to avoid shading. So the wide margins of 10 to 15 metre wide margins around the solar farm are all being seeded to wildflower and biodiversity mix for not only invertebrates, bees and butterflies and that kind of thing, but also for specific bird populations such as skylark, which is part of the reason that the biodiversity benefit on this particular application is so high, over 10%.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Butlin, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Would I be correct in assuming that the solar panels will be manufactured in China?
Almost certainly, yes.
Okay. Is there a follow-up question to that, Councillor Butlin?
No, that comes later.
All right, thank you.
They're not connected to the mobile phone network, though.
Okay. If there are no more questions for Owen Saywood, thank you very much, and we'll move on to our ward councillor and in this instance, it's Councillor Heather Timms. Councillor Timms.
Hi, Chair.
Hi, Chair. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
Right, okay, your 3 minutes starts now.
This planning application contravenes planning policy as stated in the local plan and the national policy in that it fails to protect and enhance the historic environment, policy SDC 3, ignores the landscape, general and cumulative impact, policy NE 4, contravenes green belt, contravenes landscape green infrastructure policy NE 2 and NE 3. The proposal will have a significant impact on the setting of the Holy Trinity Church and the Churchover Conservation Area. This application will have a direct impact on the views to and from the church, which ought to elevate its degree of harm. This is statute law, not just planning policy. Adding it to the already approved 2 solar farms would create a solar farm environment surrounding the village, and it should therefore be refused. I did notice the pictures you saw were taken when the leaves were on the trees. About 60% of this application is in the green belt. The remainder is in the strategic green infrastructure. If this council is serious about protecting our environment and the green spaces between villages, then this application should be refused. Churchover is a historic village in a historic landscape. Added to the 2 solar farms that have already been given planning permission, the cumulative impact will be to surround the village in a solar farm. It also results in the loss of amenity for users of footpaths by reason of close proximity of the solar panels. Indeed, R297 crosses the site. For all of the above reasons, this application should be refused. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Timms. Does anybody have any queries for Councillor Timms? No? None whatsoever? Okay then, thank you very much, Councillor Timms. Unfortunately, we have to say bye-bye to you.
Bye. Thank you.
Perhaps Sarah can confirm when you have left.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Timms has left.
Thank you very much. All right, councillors, so you've heard the officer's presentation, you've seen the report, you've heard from the agent, you've heard from the parish councillor and you've heard from the ward councillor. So as in all cases, we look at this according to our local plan, according to the MPPF, and we have to make a judgment on planning balance. So who is going to go first? Councillor Cranham. You're muted, councillor. Councillor Cranham.
Sorry, Chair, senior moment.
Okay.
I do appreciate the concerns of the local population about the cumulative effect. As councillors, we all know that when our constituents feel that they're getting more, doing more than their share, it concerns them. However, I feel that this meets all the criteria that we lay down, and therefore I shall recommend approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cranham. Next up was Councillor Butlin, then Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. The reason why I asked about where they're manufactured is, and because almost certainly kind of 99% of solar panels are made in China. And the irony of it all is that China are having to kind of build 120 new coal-fired power plants. For one of the main reasons for that is that there's so much glass to manufacture, used to manufacture solar panels, which they seem to kind of have the monopoly on these days, that they are basically having to build coal-fired power plants and import the coal from Australia. So it seems to me that we're exporting our carbon emissions to China, rather than actually kind of reducing our carbon emissions in reality. Secondly, they could talk about 27 megawatts of capacity. I've yet to see a solar farm or a wind farm, for that matter, run to any sort of capacity. So the illusion that's kind of created with the kind of narrative that's going to kind of approximately 6,930 homes is a little bit far short of the mark. Secondly, the other aspect of it is why all of a sudden, when it's got a green tag to it, is the green belt ignored? We've always been taught all the way along the line, we protect the green belt unless kind of really good reasons should be there to do otherwise. And I don't think this is a good reason, because it has also, not only is it kind of contravenes the green belt, it has a visual impact on the green belt. And I don't like the look of them. It's an illusion, to be perfectly honest. In terms of kind of saving the planet, etc. It is a really big illusion, because not to mention that, it actually puts up the cost of our energy through the renewables obligation on our energy bills. At the moment, the renewables obligation has kind of increased their kind of energy bills by at least 20%. And that detrimentally affects the less well-off in our communities. And then you've got the final element of the fact that we've got now Churchover surrounded with all these elements. And it doesn't matter which direction they're looking at solar panel farms. So on the grounds that I've just explained, I cannot, I'll move for refusal.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Butlin. Councillor Sanderson, you're next. Okay. You're muted, Neil.
I know. My finger's on nimble enough.
I know.
Right. Can I second Councillor Cannon's move for approval?
Thank you.
Each application has to be judged on its merits, not what other applications have achieved. So that's the ground rule we all work to. It's clear that the Secretary of State and the Prime Minister, no less, want to move our renewable obligations and tackle with a climate crisis stroke emergency with some speed. That's going to mean we will be moving quickly away from fossil fuels, coal and gas, and we will have to rely on renewables. This is a renewable fuel, and it's a temporary application. It's only there for 35 years. It won't be that. It's not as though it's somebody digging a coal mine or running a gas pipe. So on the grounds of the application itself and the requirements for us to meet these national objectives on renewable energy and reducing our carbon emissions, I think that the committees should support the application as laid out by the officer.
Thank you very much. Councillor Picker, you're next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officer for, again, a very detailed and comprehensive report. I do have some sympathy with the residents of Churchover, given the fact that all the solar farms in the Rugby area seem to be being positioned in this site. I know there's one coming forwards in Daventry that's borders us, but I think the cumulative impact is one that does have to be weighed up. That having been said, as Councillor Sanderson's alluded to, this is a temporary application, and I am satisfied by the conditions that the officers attach, that when this site is dismantled, when hopefully we'll have come up with a more long-term solution to the energy issues, that we will have the green belt restored to its current state. So I will be supporting this evening.
Thank you. Sarah, do you wish to come in on legal?
No, sorry, apologies, Chair. I think we might have a slight problem with the streaming, so could we have a short adjournment whilst we just double check that it's still streaming appropriately?
Yes, we can have a short adjournment.
Thank you. Michael, could you just check the streaming, please?
Thank you very much. All right, and apologies for that short technical hitch. So we will continue. Councillor Picker, I think you had finished with the point that you wanted to make. Do we have any more speakers? So we've had approval proposed by Councillor Cranham and seconded by Councillor Sanderson. We've got refusal proposed by Councillor Butlin, but no seconder for that. Councillor Gillius.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think certainly in my view, anyway, I've got to be consistent with my voting and my thoughts. Green belt is sacrosanct. Any developing the green belt, whether it's going to be there for 30 years, 35 years, you know, is immaterial. Because if you look at any building that's built, you know, you could suggest it's temporary. When it's disappeared, knocked down, pulled down, and removed, you're back to where you are, you know, soil again. So I'm pretty well going to be supporting Councillor Butlin's view on this one. I'm all for renewable energies, but I'm not keen on it being in the green belt.
Thank you. Okay. Sarah, can you clarify which way we go with the vote? Do we go with the approval first because that one was moved first?
That is my understanding. Claire or Veronica, can you just confirm that I've got that right?
Chair, in practical terms, it doesn't really matter because you'll be taking a vote either way. But generally, you take what is the amendment to the recommendation first. So in this case, it would be the refusal.
Okay. So can we just clarify the grounds for refusal?
I had understood from Councillor Butlin's words that he considered it inappropriate development in the green belt and there weren't very special circumstances to outweigh that. Yeah. Is that right, Councillor Butlin?
That is correct.
Okay. Richard, you've got your hand up.
Yes, just to follow on from Sarah, I also had my notes that Councillor Butlin had also mentioned cumulative impact, and if you wanted to confirm that was the case or not. So is that the case, Councillor Butlin? Did you also mention cumulative impact?
We can include that one as well, more the merrier.
Councillor Butlin, are you referring to the policies that were mentioned by Councillor Timms?
Yes.
Or are they covered in the ones that you mentioned?
Yeah. Councillor Timms did a kind of very succinct and to the point account of the reasons why we should refuse this. So refer to her statements.
So just for clarity, that's contrary to policies SDC3, NE2, NE3 and NE4.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Right, committee, are you clear on the reasons why we are going to look at refusal proposed by Councillor Butlin, seconded by Councillor Gillius? It's because it is in the green belt, it's the cumulative effect on the residents of Churchover, it's contrary to policy SDC3, NE2, NE3 and NE4. Okay, so all those who are going for refusal, would you raise your hands, please?
That's 4, Chair.
Okay. And those against? Oh, take your hands down, please, everybody. Okay. So those who are not in favour of refusal, would you raise your hands now, please?
Sorry, Chair, we have a number of hands that were still raised at that point.
Yeah, I know. I think we need to go back to the drawing board, don't we? Can we have all the hands down, please? I know it's a bit difficult taking hands up and down, but can we go again? Right. So we are looking at refusal. All those who are supporting refusal for the grounds that we've gone through, would you raise your hands now, please?
That's 4, Chair.
That's 4. Okay. So those hands down, please. And those who do not support refusal, raise your hands now. How many have we got?
7, Chair.
7. Okay. And I'm abstaining, which gives us a total of 12. So the motion or the move to go for refusal is lost. Do we now need to vote again on approval?
Yes, please.
Okay. So all the hands down, please. Right, so this time it's the vote for approval. So all those in favour of approval, please raise your hands.
That's 7, Chair.
Thank you. Take your hands down. All those against approval, raise your hands now.
That's 4, Chair.
Okay. And again, I'm abstaining. So that gives us a total of 12. Right, so that is approved. But obviously it will be subject to the Secretary of State deciding whether it can go ahead or not. Okay, so thank you very much to all the speakers on that one for putting forward their presentations and the points that they wish to raise. And also thank you to the officer for her report. Right, we move on now to the 4th application tonight, which is R19/0143. This is Stave Hall Farm, Fossway, Monks Kirby, and Francis Keenan is ready to present. Okay, over to you, Francis.
Okay, great. Can I just confirm you can see my screen,
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an application at Stave Hall Farm on the Fossway outside the village of Monks Kirby. It's a full planning application for a change of use of land of existing kennels to recreational fishing lake with associated accommodation and facilities. Many of you on the committee may remember that this was originally brought to Planning Committee in January, but it was deferred on ecology-based reasons, which I will go through now. So just to recap, we have the proposed site plan here. This is the proposed location of the fishing lake in the photo with the site plan. Next to it, you have the collection of buildings to the bottom of the plan, which includes Stave Hall Farm and the neighbouring Royverne Kennels, and you have the fishing lake to the north with the accommodation blocks highlighted. You've then got the recreational units. So we have the proposed log cabin, we have the shepherd hut, the glamping pod, and the bell tent. So this is a section of the fishing lake with a couple of photos of the proposed location of the fishing lake. I can confirm that Warwickshire County Council Flood Risk Management have provided no objection to the proposal. We've then got the tree planting. So as you can see here, it's quite an extensive amount of tree planting. The applicants have been in touch with the Woodlands Trust, who are going to be donating 2 tree packs, so the Shelter Belt tree pack and the Pollinator tree pack. The proposed plan that you can see here has been approved by our tree officer David Gower, who provided no objection to the overall scheme, recommending a condition for the seasonal tree planting. Moving on to the Holiday Let Cafe communal area with fishing shop and washing facilities. So as you can see here in the 2 photos, this will be built and used in the existing structures. So you've got the communal area in the shop and the small extension, which will include the washing facilities. This is a collection of, so we have 2 of the main driveway, 2 facing towards the Royverne Kennels and the Dog Hotel, and then 2 of Stable Farm itself, so the front elevation and the rear elevation. So just touching on the key considerations, I've chosen to put ecology first, as this was the main reason for the deferral. So on the 8th of January Planning Committee, it was deferred due to the lack of a grassland survey. Warwickshire County Council Ecology Department believed that the grassland had been misclassified as amenity grassland and was in fact semi-improved neutral grassland. They recommended that this was resurveyed during an optimum time of year, which would be June and July in the summertime. The applicants originally disagreed with this, hence why we ended up at Planning Committee in January. Obviously, with the deferral, they've gone ahead and provided the relevant surveys for ecology. So in November 2019, we were provided with the preliminary ecology assessment, which is what was disagreed upon. Following that, we've been provided with the grassland survey in June and the 10-year ecological management plan in October of this year. The grassland survey determined that the grass was in fact poor semi-improved neutral grassland, but this included small areas of species-rich grassland and contained 2 county scarce plant species. I would obviously remind everyone that semi-improved grassland is a declining habitat within Warwickshire. Warwickshire County Council Ecology therefore recommended no objection in the end, recommending 2 conditions. The first condition, in the order I put it on here anyway, is condition 18, which they have recommended a 10-year ecological management plan to ensure a biodiversity net gain of 3.92 is achieved on site. And then secondly, condition 17 is to ensure that the semi-improved grassland is protected when the fishing lake is excavated and it's translocated within the site, so that the subsequent spoil that's dug out for the bunds doesn't damage the grassland. This will obviously be protected with condition 17. This is just a plan taken from the grassland survey just to represent the site, how they'll achieve the biodiversity net gains. You've got things like insect boxes, bird boxes, bat boxes, the tree planting. The orange section that you can see around the fishing lake itself with the little SIs on it is where the majority of the semi-improved grassland is and where any grass will be translocated to. finishes up the ecology side of things. So just to recap the other key considerations, we have the principle of the development. The application site is located within the West Midlands Green Belt. The proposal also provides the development with the provision of outdoor sport and recreation facilities, which is considered an acceptable exemption under Section 13, paragraph 145 of the NPPF. The development also provides small-scale tourism, visitor accommodation and leisure-based uses, including sports and recreation, particularly those which would help provide local employment and support rural services, which are considered acceptable. The proposal also consists of reusing existing buildings, as we saw in the earlier photos. Moving on to character and design and the impact on openness. The site is not visible from the street scene, which would be the main Foss Way. It's situated within the existing hedgerow boundary, which is unaffected by the proposal. Fishing lakes are naturally found in the open countryside. The holiday units are constructed out of natural materials, which will weather over time. The extension to form the washing facilities is considered an appropriate scale and size when compared to the existing structure. Moving on to highways, Warwickshire County Council Highways Authority were of no objection to the proposal. Each holiday let is provided with one space directly adjacent to the accommodation for the parking of vehicles. The ancillary accommodation is provided with 5 parking spaces to be used for the fishing bailiff, cleaners and any shop cafe assistants. This will not be used for the general public. At the entrance to the site, trees have been cut back to provide visibility displays. Moving on to other matters, there is considered to be no detrimental impact to residential amenity and trees and landscaping. I've also included an informative to encourage the applicants to provide an active electric vehicle charging point, which is a slight amendment from what has been written within the officer report and decision notice. Moving on to recommendation and the planning balance, these factors carry weight in favour of the proposal. It will provide facilities for outdoor sports and recreation. It will reuse redundant buildings. It will provide the protection of a semi-improved grassland and produce a biodiversity net gain. It's designed in a sympathetic manner. It does not detrimentally impact on the amenity of surrounding properties, and it will provide adequate parking provision. Therefore, my recommendation is for approval subject to condition. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much, Francis. Yes, I remember this application really well, and I have to say that bearing in mind that it is vitally important that we can have our outdoor recreation, and that the surveys that have been done and the biodiversity gain and the conditions that have been applied, I'm actually happy to recommend approval from the chair on this one. Right, we have some hands in the air, and I think the first hand up was Councillor Sanderson.
It was very much the grassland that we were concerned about. Good conditions have now been put in place. Happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Garcia.
Actually, I think, I was disappointed in January when this didn't go through. I think it's a great project, especially given the climate that we're in, to have more outside leisure facilities. Absolutely fantastic. I would have proposed or seconded it, but, happy to vote for it.
Thank you. Councillor Butlin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad that this is going through. Unlike Councillor Garcia, this should have gone through way back in January. For us to be kind of spending so much time on the rights and wrongs of what different sorts of grass seems to be kind of slightly ridiculous.